Amy, welcome to our
Yeah,
conversation here. It is so wonderful to see you.
wonderful to be here.
Yay. So, our journey together has been a really, really cool one, and lots of twists and turns. And we were just before we hit record, we were just kind of reminiscing about all of our time, all of our work together. And deciding at what point, where do you want to pick up from the story of where you were to where you are? And I just want to turn it over to you. Like what kind of what do you remember about when you and I first started working together?
Well, when we very first did, I just knew physically I wanted to feel better. And I liked what you were saying about ways to get there. So when we started working, what do you call it, your functional medicine, whatever the functionally things to do. And um, it provided me some good things to be aware of and things to be doing. But once our time together, I think COVID hit and it kind of kiboshed everything. And I went back to all my same old bad habits, kind of forgot everything we had been working on. So then when I got the old type 2 diabetes diagnosis, I pretty much panicked and knew I needed to do something and knew I didn't want to be dependent on medicine the rest of my life. Um, and out of the blue, you contacted me. So that was the answer I was looking for. So then we got to work together, starting with that, helping me focus on what I needed to around that.
Yeah.
So, and that was one on one at that point.
Yeah. What
And go ahead.
no, you go ahead. We started out one on one. I remember.
Yep, yep. And then, well, then you had we had the group. I'm not sure how you put the group together, but um, it's been a couple different groups, right?
Yeah.
We've evolved through, and so it kind of helped me work on the more important things, not just like what I was eating to get my diabetes under control. There's a lot more than that. It's my thinking that needed to work on. So
Would you say
that's where I've definitely made the biggest change. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yes.
Sorry.
And before I ask you more about that, I mean, can you share like how many different things you tried, different attempts? Like, did you have an experience of, just that's the way I remember it. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, I mean, I guess if we're talking about from a health standpoint, wanting to lose weight, I tried a million different ways. I've tried them all. Um, I tried exercising, making myself exercise more, but that was short lived. I didn't keep up with that long term. I I would just, no matter what I tried, fall back into my old bad habits as soon as I stopped it, or as soon as I, you know, saw a little success, maybe. Maybe I sort of sabotaged myself and then like, oh wait, this is working, and then go back to where I was. But then too, when we started, I was kind of in a semi-retired state. I was trying to decide whether I could be retired, whether I wanted to be retired, whether I could afford to be retired, and thought that I've been traveling for work, flying to Atlanta or Orlando every week, flying on Monday, coming home on Thursday, and trying to get my life at home all squished into 2 days on the weekend. And um, I wasn't eating good. I certainly wasn't exercising. I wasn't taking care of myself at all. So I did know I needed to do something to take better care of myself, but I didn't have a clue what to do. So I just knew all the things that didn't work, and I didn't want to try that again.
Yeah. So you were starting to say that, so, we did one-on-one work together. There was one group that you were in, and that was a short term. Now you're in the membership. Last year we did a mini course. You did one of the mini courses, and the upcoming course, I think you're thinking about that, maybe.
Definitely.
And so when I asked you, before we hit record, like what do you think was the big game changer for you? Well, first of all, Amy, actually tell us how, like, what is the physical health transformation that's happened? If you're cool with sharing some of that. Like,
Sure.
really, what happened with your physical health?
Well, I don't know if I used this word before, but I kind of panicked when I got the diabetes diagnosis. And so I had decided that I was going to lose weight and get my A1C or whatever levels where they needed to be without medicine, and decided that I was going to fast. And I think I had just started when you called me, and and I can't remember why you happened to reach out to me, and even now, but it was, I guess, maybe to tell me about one of your programs you were doing. I can't remember exactly why, but it was kind of the right thing I needed to kind of put it all together. So what I did, I mean, I would decided I was going to use fasting. So I started the first my first attempt at it. I fasted from Friday lunch to Monday lunch, and I only drank water. That first weekend was pretty painful. I had a dull headache the whole weekend. And then on Monday lunch, I ate, and I was so sick. I actually went home for one of the first rare times I've ever gone home from work. But when I woke up Tuesday morning, I felt awesome. I had never felt, I felt great. So I did that for a few months and managed to lose 75 pounds doing that. And
75
then,
pounds.
yeah. And then I still wasn't on medicine at that point. Maybe I'd only lost 60 or 65 at that point. But then, with my endocrinologist, he said that I kind of plateaued, and he thought that if I went on medicine for a little while, that I could get me to where I thought I wanted to be faster, because I was plateauing. But um, I, I'm not sure that really worked out the best. I mean, I still haven't gotten any further along. Maybe slipped back a little bit, because I think I'm relying too much on the medicine, which is exactly what I didn't want to do. But anyway, I'm getting off the subject. So, in the course of that too, my knees, I had really problems with my knees. And I was even one knee, I was walking stiff legged, and I bent to orthopedics, and, he said, someday you're going to need to have your knees replaced. There's just no doubt. And I just didn't want to do that. So, I decided to try stem cell treatments on them. And I went ahead and did it on both knees. And that's made a big difference too. I'm not sure it was the miracle I was looking for. I wanted a quick, easy fix, but I'm finding as I get more active and do more things, my knees are feeling better. And I don't know, hopefully, if nothing else, I've put off having to get my knees replaced. I don't know if I've totally prevented it yet. Only time will tell that. So,
So you lost all this weight, you got the type 2 diabetes under control, perhaps not to the degree that you think is still possible. In my
right.
mind, I don't think you slipped backwards. Health is fluid. It
True.
it it's you're but it's night and day from where you were.
Absolutely.
What I want to highlight though is that it, to me, it's not the type of diet, because somebody might be listening and going like, oh,
Right.
okay, let me look up fasting.
Right. Right. Right.
Well,
No, that,
who knows if that is the best, because it's not. There's no one size fits all for anyone.
right. Absolutely.
But what I want to highlight here was, of all the things that you tried, like you have made these changes in how you move, how you eat, and this time it's been permanent. What I really remember when we were doing, I don't know, we must have done like 3 months of one-on-one. I remember at points during our time together, I would say to you, Amy, if you had to rate yourself, what percentage of a chance do you think that you have of going back to your old? Because that was one of the things you were concerned about. And
Yeah.
that was the deliverable that I wanted to bring. I wanted to give you what you wanted, was that you were going to actually do it. You were going to achieve the outcome that you wanted, and it was going to last. And so
Right.
we didn't talk very little. I mean, when I'm working with somebody in a coaching type relationship and we're having these transformative conversations, if someone asks me something about fasting that I could save them a little time from doing a big internet search, of course I'm going to say like, oh no, doctor hat is off, sorry, can't. But like I would say, like, we spent 10% of our time talking about lab tests and all that stuff.
Right. Right.
It was a different conversation. It was, who is Amy and how does Amy create her experience, right? That became, and anyway, back to the percentages. Like, I was feeling it. I was feeling something different, and you would say things like, "Oh, I guess I don't know, maybe 75% chance that I might go back." And then it was almost, I remember a time where I felt like I don't even think I asked the question. And there was something you said, and I was just like, oh, she feels like she sees things differently.
Yeah.
She's
Totally.
right. Do you remember that? Where all of a sudden
Yeah.
it was like,
Then
yeah,
all of a sudden it was 75% chance I wasn't going to go back.
yeah, yeah, there was a
Or whatever. Yeah.
75% chance that you would not go back.
Right.
And again, nobody is professing like this perfect linear, we never have time, like I mean, right now uh, I haven't worked out in, I don't know, 2 weeks, which is highly unusual for me, and I can feel it. But I know it's not a problem. I hope it doesn't last for another 2 weeks.
Right.
But and there were periods where you were like, oh, I'm really loving those blueberries at night.
Yeah.
And you were seeing that as
That
like,
was my
oh my
sweetness.
gosh,
Yep.
this is the setback. I'm like, you were in your mind making it mean something.
Right. Right.
Something has
That's it.
dramatically gone wrong. And how do you see that now?
Well, I just kind of chuckle that I would obsess. Well, I was watching I was checking my sugar levels after, whatever, 2 hours after I ate, no matter what I ate, and obsessing over trying to find the foods that would not increase my glucose levels and all that stuff. So when I was obsessing over blueberries, I was getting worried, and it really didn't affect my glucose levels that much. I don't know, but I think I was worried because I was eating them too much. I would sit and eat like a big bowl of them, and then once I started eating, I couldn't stop. And anyway,
But
now I can hardly eat them now.
well, okay. So first of all, like, when you're trying out something new health wise, it isn't necessarily a bad thing to learn how the body works. and to
Right.
check your glucose frequently because you're in a learning phase. But when your mind starts saying, "Oh, this is obsessive behavior," that's where it's like, well, wait a minute. It occurs to you to check your glucose, and you do.
Right.
Okay, like what's the problem with that? And then at some point, you didn't do that anymore.
Right.
And the idea, and then when you said, "Oh, I eat the blueberries and I can't stop eating them," but eventually you did stop because
Yeah.
I don't see blueberries in your hand right now.
Nope. Nope. They don't taste good to me anymore. I
And
think I ate many of them.
maybe one day they will.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
But yeah, and I was gonna say though, but the whole thing on fasting, I was with the mindset that I was gonna do it. And I knew that was never gonna be a permanent solution, doing my weekend fasting. And somewhere along the way, and I know my endocrinologist made the point that I didn't have to only drink water. He said eating some carrots and celery on the weekend doesn't really break your fast, which just gave me the license to start nibbling on the weekends. But then I got to the point where doing that Friday to Monday was just, I was fretting over it. I was getting too worked up over it. So I don't do that anymore. On the weekends, I try to eat one meal a day, try to make that work and do better. But
so
um,
Amy,
that fasting was just my me getting me going, getting me started.
yeah, again, I don't want to focus that much on the actual dietary changes that you made because I want whoever's listening to this to find their own way.
Right. Well,
What I want to highlight, what I really want to highlight is what were the thought processes, the internal shifts that happened for you? Like, how do you feel different now about yourself and your capacity to take on something like this? Like, because indeed, not only did you change in that domain of your life, but I know of 3 or 4 other areas. So how would you describe the internal shift?
um, well, mainly was the big change was getting out of my head, not overthinking, and it's my thinking that was the problem. So if I wasn't obsessing over my eating or my weight, then it was, I moved and I needed to unpack my boxes or um, whatever it was, things at work. I was internalizing things that were happening at work, making bigger deals out of them. So it was all my thinking that was really the big change. And instead of obsessing over every little thing, just kind of getting out of my head and just kind of letting it be and not letting that take over.
And the way you say it, I mean, it could sound like, yeah, I just, you know, didn't have obsessive thinking. Like it's a huge, big
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
It's a huge, huge, big deal.
And I know a million times we had the conversation where all I did was complain that I had such big plans for what I was going to do on the weekend. And all I did was sit in front of the TV all weekend. I did nothing. And then that would just make me more upset that I'd be, get all worked up about the fact that I didn't do anything. I was good. I need to do all this stuff. I need to get it done. I have to have it done. But I didn't get it done. I didn't do anything. And not only did I not even get it done, I didn't even start it. So, once I might have a fleeting thought, oh yeah, I meant to do that. Oh well, I didn't do it now. And I kind of let it go. I don't obsess over it. And I don't know if things are happening any faster, but I sure as heck don't worry about them anymore and makes life a lot smoother.
Yeah. And you are getting things done. You are getting things done.
Yes, yes. I guess I don't know that I'm getting done at any different pace than I would have before when I was obsessing over it. It's probably the same pace, but just now mentally it's not as exhausting.
Well, so there's no way to know.
Right, true,
There's
true.
actually there's no way for us to know. And like, what's the right pace? And did I mean, that's just more thought, right? Well,
Right, right.
I could have done it faster. Maybe I should have done it faster. Like, but what you're experiencing is some internal peace. And that in itself, and things are still happening. Things are still getting done. And if you were going to get things done and it occurred with mentally beating yourself up and stressing over what you weren't getting done and feeling this internal turmoil and anxiety, and or getting things done and having less of that, or like you said, like, you let it go,
Yeah,
because we all have that experience. Like, thinking arises, one that isn't true, never true.
right.
When we start seeing the the made up power of our powerful creative mind to make up these stories and tell ourselves, we can we can detach from that a little bit.
Yeah. And I mean, I think I said this, but I still have the thoughts. I'll have if I kind of want to do something and I don't do it, I end up sitting on the couch all day watching TV. Thought, oh shoot, yeah, I wanted to do X, Y, and Z today. But the difference now is that's like, okay, well, I can always do it tomorrow. There'll still be an opportunity. I must have needed to relax. That must have been what was in my cards for the day. And I just don't let it take over my life. And doing that too, then I would get down on myself and have negative thoughts about myself. And, you know, I must be lazy or, unmotivated or procrastinator, all those words I would use. How come I can't be like other people that seem to get things done? I
Well,
don't have those thoughts.
the mind is so good at creating comparison,
Yeah.
of believing that it needs to come in and shake us up to get us to do more. And I think a lot of people, when they start you know seeing what we're seeing in these kind of conversations that we have, there is kind of the thought that, well, okay, now that I see these thoughts aren't real, they're not true, I don't have to believe them. There's kind of this fantasy that they'll go away. And you know I think that that's possible, but I think it is, to me, my personal experience has been, the less attention I give them, the less energy I infuse in them. It's kind of like, the pesky neighbor that's pounding on your front door and you just really don't want to invite her in for tea. She comes over every afternoon. Eventually, when you don't answer the door, she quits coming as often,
Yeah.
but it's not, nothing's gone wrong if those kind of thoughts arise. And to
Right.
me, I just see you realizing that there's there's a voice in your head saying things, and it isn't you.
Definitely.
That's the huge change. As a coach, I have hopes, I guess, for my clients, in general, but it isn't my job to ever try to decide, what it is I think they need, or specifically. And when someone comes with something, then obviously, it's part of the arrangement that I'm gonna help them move in that direction. But it's also interesting that what people think they want doesn't always end up being what they actually want. And when we drill down to, oh, my health, is losing 75 pounds, A1C being in range, um, most recent lab tests, like 95% of your ranges in optimal range. But what does that really give you? It's not just, oh, I don't want to take medication for the rest of my life.
Well, I mean, it gives you your life back. I mean, I just feel all parts of my life, I feel better.
Yeah.
It's easier to go through life when you feel better.
Yeah.
And I mean, I still certainly have aches and pains and
But you feel,
there's, but yeah, it's so much better than I did before.
yeah. And Amy, like, kind of psychologically, everybody wants to be content and peaceful and not stressed out and find peace of mind and happiness. And what's really interesting is that when people show up, they think, well, okay, when I get the house organized, then I won't be beating up on myself. And like, it's like you put the cart before the horse. You think,
Right.
when I get this organized, then I'm going to feel better, right? I'll be happier. Life
Yep.
will be
Yep.
nicer because I can do this and that. But when in fact, it works the other way. It's like when we realize that we're already made perfect. We're, our true essence. Really, there's nothing broken. There's nothing that needs to be fixed. There's nothing in our circumstances that can give us that peace. That's that outside in perspective that now you see, when you know who you are, you're always already exactly what we're looking for. But we think the path to getting that contentment, that peace of mind, that better life, that better feeling, whether it's physical or psychological, is by manipulating our circumstances. Not to say that there's nothing to be done, not to say like, oh, I see that I'm just unconditional love and I'm the peace that surpasses all understanding. I'll go live in a cave now and meditate all day long. It doesn't work that way either. When we start with, the foundation that you have seen so deeply, then the outward, nothing on the outside has to change, but it does. From
Right.
the place of going, I have this inner wisdom. I have access to, the answers, the solutions. Um, I think too, Amy, like when we stop mentally, tell me what your experience is, but when we limit or eliminate this worry and beating ourselves up, and like that takes up so much energy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There's a freedom in a almost like a vital, that vital life force just feels more accessible when the mind's not up there just, creating all that internal turmoil and stress.
Yeah.
So in the time that we've been together, I know that at work, your work life is different, or at least not that the circumstance, nothing's changed at work, right?
Right. Right.
You have the same
Except me,
job. You
my
have the
thinking.
same, it is. The only
Mhm.
difference is you and your thinking. And you're knowing that you're not your thoughts.
Yep. Again, I still have the thoughts. those little things that nag on me, but I just take a deep breath and say, it is what it is, and just don't let it overtake my day,
Yeah.
my thinking.
Yeah, Amy, it's the disidentification with the thinking.
Yep.
Because, listen, earlier today, I had a conversation with my coach, and oh my gosh, I was in a thought loop that looked so real, right? And it was like, oh, putting this program together, and it's like, oh, I'm in over my head. I've promised, to deliver. I have the curriculum, the syllabus kind of outlined. And it's like, oh, that content, I think I'm in over my head. Thought, like, and I mean, maybe I am, maybe I'm not. But what I didn't see was the the felt sense of like something's wrong. I got to do something about it. Not recognizing that I was making it all up, right? It was a thought created reality, and a thought created me. Oh, me who should be me, which is not real. The character I made, who's this far along and capable of teaching this, but not capable of teaching that. And again, not to say that there's not some degree of competence and skill set there, but the part that I was attaching to, I'd made it all up.
Right.
And that's just what, that's what we've been conditioned to do our whole lives. We're a me. We have this body. Our name is Amy. Our name is Kathleen. That's who we are. And all the stress comes from our attempts to, secure that identity, to make that identity safe. To a lot of what I was going through was like, oh, I don't want to say anything wrong to somebody. And I don't want to look like a fool. Me, right? Ego, call it the ego. Like
Right.
I've created this personality, like good, good coach, writing a good program. And oh, I gotta live up to that. Like, no, I've written a program, writing is happening, and it's fine, and then people are gonna enroll, and then teaching is going to happen, and delivery of the course is going to happen, and engagement with the people is going to happen. And then, and hopefully that person that I made up kind of like sits in the co-pilot seat, and the creative life force that I am, can come through.
Yeah.
And you've seen that for yourself. So work,
Definitely.
your physical health, your internal feeling of like what I would call like a foundational. We were talking about grounding in our last call together, and that foundational sense of well-being that you know it now. And within that, the chattery, thinky, wait a minute, here I am,
Yeah.
the voice pops up.
Yep.
So you got your home organized, you got your health in an amazing good place, work's good, you move to a new community, you're getting involved in some groups there.
Yeah.
Anything surprise you? Did you, like, if you were to try to think back before all this began to now? Like, did anything happen, or is there anything that's different for you that you weren't really expecting?
Hmm. I think, um, I think I'm surprised at really how easy it really all was. And, and only easy because I made it hard by overthinking it and, convincing myself it was hard and difficult and impossible and not going to happen. So I think about how much of my life I've wasted worrying needlessly or overthinking or making stuff up and crazy.
I love what you said. Yeah. Our mind is so creatively powerful. It can use the past. It can go to the past to blame us for why didn't I figure this out sooner? I made it so hard on myself. It can go to the create future scenarios to that we can use to scare ourselves, or impossible, that future scenario, like this is going to be really hard. And maybe it is and maybe it's not. We can't know. But you found that, it sounds like you found that when you kind of got grounded in this place of knowing that that voice in your head isn't you, a lot of things that looked hard ended up not being.
Well, yeah, and that's not to say that while I was going through it didn't seem hard, but looking back on it
Uh,
now, it wasn't hard. What was I so worried about?
well, listen, Amy. So like going through it again. Hard is made
It's
up.
a thought. Yep,
It
you're
is.
right.
It is thought.
Right,
Like, and that's okay. I mean, if that's the experience we're having, it's helpful if we can realize that the reason we're experiencing hard is because we're thinking it's hard
right.
while it's
And I
happening.
get right. And by hard, I mean, I guess it isn't just like boom, like that. My thinking was okay. I would take steps forward and then I'd take 3 steps back and 1 step forward and a couple back and 3 ahead. And so I guess to me, that's the hard, but
Oh, okay. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. I um I just had somebody ask me if she could interview me on her podcast, and we were talking about a couple different things, and she mentioned how so many people will find something like what you had experienced, and there's these steps forward and steps back, and again, that's all made up, right? But it feels like that. That's what the brain,
right,
our mind is
right,
telling us. Oh, look, you move forward, now you move back. Like, that's all made up. But that's what you're saying looked hard, and yet why did you stick with it? Because you did. You persisted. You just,
well, I, when it was the steps forward, I liked where it was going. I liked the way
yeah,
I felt. I liked the way, so,
yeah,
I mean, I figured I had had all my thinking for 60 whatever years that I wasn't going to change that in 6 minutes. So, I
yeah.
just telling myself that keep at it because that's where you want to be.
I love it. I love it. I love it. That is the vast, vast, vast majority of people's experience, is that you see it and then you don't. You know what I mean? I mean, just perfect example. Like I got kind of hoodwinked by my own thinking today, but it happens a lot less often, and
Yeah.
there's nowhere to get to. Like, I don't have a measuring stick anymore where I say like, oh, well, won't it be great if, the day comes where that sort of experience that I had today only happens like a couple times a year. Like, it's all good. It's all cool. It's just we can be with what's happening and just be okay with that. Just that is where that peace comes from. It's just being here in
Right.
the present moment. But I do love that you shared that it felt like two steps forward and one step back. And therefore that's your brain was telling you, well, that's hard. That's how it's going to be. And apparently you were able to put that thinking aside enough to just keep looking, keep exploring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I really, really appreciate you being part of this community because you're such a valued asset, and you're just such an example of what's possible. And that I really think somebody will hear this and be inspired, and um, I'm just grateful that you shared so openly. Anything else that I didn't ask you that you want to say?
Um, no, I don't think so.
I guess
I,
all of a sudden what comes to mind, were you going to say something?
I did think of something while you were talking earlier. That one thing that I remember you all would ask me a lot are what are the things that I like to do? What are the things I have fun with? What hobbies do I have? What I like to do? And I would tell you, but I said, but I can't do those until I get these other things taken care of. And it took me a while, but I started doing some of those things, even though the other things aren't all taken care of. I did start doing those, and it made a big difference too, because I enjoy doing them, my quilting or whatever my hobby, whichever hobby I was on that week. But um that that definitely has helped too, to not have to have everything in order before you do have A totally complete before you can do B, before you can do C, that they can all kind of progress at their own pace at the same time.
So I bet there are a lot of people that think that like you do, like, well, I got to take care of these responsibilities and then get the house organized, and then I'll allow myself to do some quilting. And and you were very resistant to that idea.
Totally.
And at some point, I just had to give up, but apparently you figured that one out for yourself, or
Well,
decided to try it. And
yeah, I mean, uh, I had some things like I wanted somebody having a baby and I wanted to make a baby quilt. And the baby wasn't going to wait for me to get my life in order. It was coming when it was coming. So, um, it had a deadline. And then my sister wanted to quilt with me, do it together. And so it got to be, something we could do together. And so
yeah,
it was, I enjoyed doing that.
yeah.
So,
The last thing, we'll wrap it up, but one thing that came to mind was the fact that, the membership community, um, how's that been for you? Having versus working with me one-on-one, like,
right. Well, even though it's a group, I still feel like um, I feel like it's one-on-one. Because I know you're saying things generically, but it hits all of us like you're talking directly to us, or um but it's great having other people and find out your thoughts maybe aren't so unusual, that they're thinking the same thing, um, and yeah, just, I like that, that feeling of, um, being similar and, being good friends. I mean, I feel like they're good friends.
Yeah. It is, you like, we all have a human brain that's all up to the same shenanigans,
Yeah,
and it's to see. Yeah, my coach today said something like, "Oh yeah, like the experience I was having." She's like, "Oh yeah, that about 9 months ago, I, had a similar thing, kind of where somebody pointed out something to her and she went and checked it out and she was like doing a comparison thing, like, oh my gosh, that coach, that author, her stuff is way better than mine, and she's like, I just like got sucked right into that. So it is kind of nice to be in a community where you like, oh yeah, I'm not the only one, and the deep friendships and the coaching. When you say it feels like one-on-one, there is something that happens, when I'm part of a group like that and someone else is getting coached on a, and there is, like you also said, there's this universality to everything,
absolutely.
right? Because
Yeah,
I'm always coming at it from the same, your identity. Once you see who you really are, and then you see that when you operate as this persona, then you create an experience of life that is not filled with peace and love and productivity and ease, right?
right,
But when someone else brings something and it's not your thing, it's like I think that the egoic, need to cling on and hang on to this identity of me can kind of just take a back seat because it's not personal. And none of it's personal anyway. It's all universal, but we think it's personal. We think it's
right,
just us. And so we wouldn't
right,
listen to, then the coaching kind of like the filter comes down a little bit because you're listening to their stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, me too. Yeah, it's cool how that works. Well,
yeah.
Amy,
And, and one more thing, and it's cool too how our times together just kind of organically evolve too. I know you don't usually have, you might have something in your back pocket if we get stuck, but um, it's just kind of as we all check in, how what evolves out of that, and it organically becomes what we all needed to be talking about,
you're
needed to be
right.
discussing.
You're right. You're right. You guys have shown me that over and over because I would do things like try to get prepared by trying to ask questions ahead of time. Like, what do you guys want to, you want to talk about money? You want to talk about this, that? You want to talk about, sticky relationships with in-laws? Like you're all like, I don't know. And then I think, oh, I don't have anything in my back pocket. I'm not prepared. And then just like you said, I just let what needed to, like, we all showed up and see what's there. Just what's there to be explored.
Right.
There's no better way than, like you use the word organic. There's really, and there are times when I think it's important to have, you know, but yeah, just being in the moment, it's really beautiful because those meetings are the ones that, people heard what they needed to hear because that's what came
Mhm.
up.
Yep.
Uh, I think we create our own gifts. I think we can concoct, like, I kind of, this program that I'm creating, I said I want to create a sandbox to play in, and I want to kind of again, all made up, but I kind of want to set the bar a little bit high. I hadn't felt like I'd taken myself out of my comfort zone for a while. And I was like, I want to see what comes of it. And exactly, I didn't know how it would happen and when it would happen. But oh, the doing the project was the portal to come back home to see, to see how I get in my own way and, to see how identified I am with this egoic personality construct. And same in our membership meetings. What needs to be addressed, it just comes through if you let it. And that has been really cool. I'm glad to hear that
Yep.
you like that, because we all get what we need when we do
Yep.
it that way. Well, we could talk all night, Amy, but thank you, thank you. This was
You're
beautiful.
welcome.
And we'll see you in a couple days in the next membership meeting.
Yes, I guess it's tomorrow, right? Yeah.
It is tomorrow. All right, we'll
All
see you.
right.